Hi everyone. Welcome today. We're talking today about how the degrees are not necessary to essentially live a successful career, successful lifestyle. Today it's got me and Holly, and we are joined by Liv Greaves, an amazing friend of ours, friend of Pollen's, uh, marketer, content and marketing executive, and general director as well. Woman of many talents, and it's absolutely great to have you on today. I'd love if you could just, I guess, yeah, just tell us a little bit about yourself, give yourself a little introduction, maybe a bit better than the one that I just gave you. But yeah, nice to have you on today.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. I am sure my head is going to be double the size after that introduction. Thank you, Jared. My name's Lib. I've been working marketing for 2.5 years now, or just coming up to 2 years. And I didn't go to university. I decided to pursue an apprenticeship. So that's why I'm really passionate about making sure that everybody knows that there's alternate routes into careers. And I completely appreciate, like, we're talking about the degree not being necessary. And I think we're talking about it in a broad sense of for all careers, because I appreciate if you want to be a doctor, you need a degree, although they do have apprenticeships coming out for that now, which is very exciting. Yeah, I've been working in marketing for 2 years, and I'm like Jared said, I work also as a general director for JCI Manchester, who are a not-for-profit organisation for the development of young professionals. So I'm very passionate about ensuring that everybody has opportunities to develop and everybody is aware of all the opportunities available to them and nobody is sort of pigeonholed into the correct way to go about getting into the industry they want to. I think that's a more in-depth introduction. Great. Yeah, kind of introduce myself as well. I work for Pollen, so I am the business development and brand manager there. I've been there for just over a year now. I joined in a marketing role, and then throughout my role, I also helped with our matchmaking and recruiting side of things. I decided that that was something that I was really passionate about, being able to call people, and we say this lightly, even though I do believe it, changing lives. When we're telling people that they've got that role and we're able to judge without experience, without the degree. Personally, I went to university myself. However, I was that year that I went to university during COVID. So I didn't actually meet any of my teachers until the last year. I practically taught myself the whole 3 years. I met a handful of people that I went to university with. I was a commuter, so I didn't actually live there. So my university experience was not what I expected. So I don't want this to kind of be a conversation where we're like bashing degrees, but like that's not the case at all. But what I've kind of realized and come to terms with, although my degree has helped me in so many ways, is the skills that I've learned beyond that about myself that's really helped me in my role that I currently do, as well as like the part-time roles that I've had before university. So finding those incredible people that might have taken a different path or a different route, that's really important as well, because I can say myself, there's far more things that I've learned beyond education and beyond my degree that would be very valuable in many different roles. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great introduction for yourself as well. And my name is Jared, of course. Yeah, so I'm the community and marketing manager here at Pollen. I did go to uni as well. I went to Sussex Uni, finished at the same year as COVID, so I finished in 2020. I did a psychology degree. My original degree pathway was going down sort of the mental health route. At some point, I guess I kind of fell out of love with that sort of route and ended up wanting to do something a little bit more creative. So I feel like I'm a person, personally, I'm quite a creative person. And yeah, that led me into pollen, and now we're here. So it's been a great one so far. Yeah, definitely. But let's let's get into it again. I think like in terms of your university journey or non-university journey rather, um, I guess I want to know like I guess I just want a little bit of your insight onto I guess like your early thoughts about university in general, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I finished GCSEs and then went to do A levels at college because I didn't really know what I wanted to do.
So that I sort of took that next step with lots of people my age do, just get, the gradual jump into college. And then while I was in college, I realized that the more I looked into university, the more people spoke about it. I just wasn't sure that it was what I wanted to do. And having studied media in college, I knew I wanted to go and work in marketing, but I didn't want to go and have to do an extra 3 years of school for that. I'm very much a practical learner and I like to learn on the job. So that was something that really drove that for me. And I also think I have two siblings and they're one of them's older and he'd already done an apprenticeship. So that world of apprenticeships was already open to me, which I appreciate isn't the case for a lot of people. So my higher education college were very, very driven in getting every single student to go to university. And I know why that is. It's figures and statistics and often monetary driven, which unfortunately is the case for a lot of higher education colleges. And I spoke to many of my peers that didn't know apprenticeships were a thing, didn't know they could do apprenticeships. I had many a heated discussion with leaders in that college about how I didn't want to go to university, I didn't want to do a personal statement, and I didn't want to apply to UCAS. I was met with things like, but what if you get really good A-level results and decide that you want to on the day and you haven't applied? And it's like, it was never a case of me not having confidence in the fact that I could get good A-level results. It was just that I didn't feel it was the right path for me. And people weren't particularly accepting of it. And there was a big stigma from, leaders in the college and other, like some of my peers as well, thinking apprenticeships were just sort of bricklaying and they weren't as desirable a route as going to university. So it did encompass a lot of heated conversation and a lot of me having to fight my corner because not many people were in it. But not going to university was the best decision for me. I'm 2 years into a role that I love. I love working marketing. I've had so much opportunity that I wouldn't get going to university. And I think it's really important that the stance I always take on it is it's not about apprenticeships or university. It's about making sure that everybody knows every single option that's available to them.
No, definitely. I feel like that option I don't think a lot of people in like higher positions or later on in that career, it might be the same then. Know that like we don't really have those options available to us unless you have a really good person who works in careers at the school. I remember like we'd have dedicated time like on our timetable, like, yep, this is your UCAS lesson, like make sure you go to your UCAS lesson and you'd do that and you'd review it and you'd write your statement and things like that. And I remember I was working like part-time in like a retail job, like £4 an hour. And I actually had to call my mum because I couldn't afford to send over my UCAS. And I was like, oh, okay, I need to do it. If I don't, I'm not going to university. But not once did I ever think, oh, okay, maybe it'd be easier this way. Because obviously I was in a year of like the pandemic. So the thing of apprenticeships went down a little bit. So I did kind of honestly think that university was my only option, or I'd kind of be out there in the world a bit lost and I wouldn't have anybody else to rely on. Whereas I'm like, oh, okay, while I'm at college at sixth form, I have this careers person telling me like this is what best and this is what universities you should be in applying to and these are the best courses for here. It wasn't really a discussion, and even for myself, going to university wasn't a discussion because I'm one of the first in my family to go to university. But I kind of knew like what I wanted to do myself and what I wanted to get into. I knew that I wanted to build my career and aspire high and do those things, but it wasn't there for me on how to do that. I was just like, oh, you go to university, that's what you do, and you have your picture with like your bit of paper, and then like, you straight away get a job. And then I left university and I was like, oh, I can't get a job. That's quite difficult.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately there's a big urgency placed on it. Like I said before, that you can go to university at any age, but it's positioned to 18-year-olds at college that you have to go this year, you have to apply this year. And that pressure already, like, students that are under immense amount of pressure trying to do A levels. And like, I was a similar situation to you, Holly. I did my A levels just coming out of COVID. So that added pressure of having completely disrupted teaching and not having a normal college experience, as well as being pressured to apply for this, university that I wasn't certain I wanted to go to. I think the only thing, like the most important thing to me is urging to people that you don't have to rush that decision. Like it's not something that you should rush into, and it's definitely not something you should just go to because you don't know what to do.
Yeah. Do you have other people who are like supportive of that decision, or is it kind of like you saw that it worked well for your brother, that kind of thing?
I was lucky in the sense that I had lots of friends, and there were teachers at my college who appreciated my decision. It's just the sense that a lot of the senior leaders in the institution I went to were understandably focused on getting as many children, like students, to university as possible. And I appreciate that's part of their job, but I think it's important that we understand that not everybody's the same, not everybody learns the same. And we don't know what, like you said, you couldn't afford sending your UCAS application. That again is another thing of an added pressure to basically young adults. Like, I mean, I know technically you're an adult, but you're still a kid, aren't you? You're not in the real world yet. And I think it's just so important that we make sure that that rhetoric starts to change.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess, like you say, like so you did have a few teachers who would support you to some extent, but then like obviously to then go out and find the information on those like apprenticeships and I guess different things out there is a whole different thing because I'm sure like you say, like where there is specific time set out in school for everyone to do their UCAS and stuff, obviously if you're then not going to uni, then I guess that would be your own time. Like how did that look for you? And like I guess yeah, what was you doing during that time?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I went to the UCAS lessons, and I think very quickly my tutors realised that these UCAS lessons were pretty pointless for me because I wasn't going to send in a UCAS application. So it just sort of looked like okay, well, go to the library and research apprenticeships then. It was very much a go off and do it your own. And I will, it's important to mention that as I was leaving college, they did appoint a careers officer, and she really is fabulous, and she started to bring in apprenticeships much more as I was leaving. But yeah, it was a very much go and find your own information, sort it out yourself sort of thing. It wasn't massively supported. And I think, again, if you're not, like, I was lucky in the sense that I had a family member who'd already been through the process, so I had an idea of what it looked like. But I appreciate it's a really overwhelming thing to navigate, trying to figure out what an apprenticeship is, how they work. And often they run through a couple of different companies depending on who's providing it and whether it's in-house and things like that. And the application process as well is much different to a job application. Like, you have an initial application, an assessment center, and then possibly an interview. It's such a minefield to navigate, especially when you've never experienced anything like it before.
Yeah, I can imagine. Do you also just like off the top of your head, like do you have any like good resources that people who are in that position could possibly use? Just if like I say off the top of your
Yeah, absolutely. So I always used to go to apprenticeship provider websites rather than look at companies, because often companies, unless they're massive, like BMW runs an apprenticeship in-house, so you have to apply through their website. But companies like Apprentify, Baltic Apprenticeships, notgoingtouni.com, they all have loads and loads of resources. Or if you're at a point where you don't know what you want to do, but you're studying a certain subject or you're interested in a certain subject, there's a website called Prospects, and you can just click on, like marketing or, it's got such a wide range of things from like farming to engineering and everything, and it'll give you job titles, job roles that relate to that field, loads and loads of information, which I found a really useful resource because, like, working in marketing, it's such a broad industry that you might not know what you want to do, but you just know that you want to go into that certain thing.
Yeah, sweet. Thank you. That's I'm sure a bunch of people will definitely benefit massively from that as well. For sure.
We'll add that to our resource hub.
100%, 100%.
So I guess kind of like going off to this like conversation and this kind of topic is like when you kind of left university and you're kind of like looking for jobs, I guess in terms of like your apprenticeship, when you were looking for jobs, did you see that you had like a lot of like barrier in what you could actually kind of get? Because I was like the fact that I kind of was like, oh, I have my degree in hand and like everything, I was like, my degree like allowed me to do that. Did you find that you kind of struggled with that?
So I was lucky in the sense that how my apprenticeship worked is I was matched up with an employer to do my apprenticeship, and then they offered me a permanent role off the back of that. So I still work for them now. But I have, I've been through job specs recently and looked just out of pure curiosity, out of what they sort of look like. And I've probably I had a look this morning. I came across probably 20 applications that personally I wouldn't be able to apply for because it was degree necessary, or you must have a level 5 qualification in XYZ. And I've noticed that lots and lots of job descriptions, instead of saying degree necessary, they'll say you must have a level 4 qualification, which is still the first year of a degree level. And you can't get that unless you do a level 4 apprenticeship, which is a 3-year degree apprenticeship, or go to uni and get your 3 years done. So, you know, it's unfortunately it's a barrier, and I think it's really important to recognize that employers could be missing out on so much incredible talent. Like I know like a massive amount of people who didn't go to university now, like, you know, in working the field I am and being passionate about what I am, it's led me to connect with so many people who've been in a similar situation. They wouldn't have the job, they wouldn't be in the roles they are now, they wouldn't have had the opportunities, had every single job application had degree necessary, level 5 qualification, you know. So I think it is definitely a barrier, and it's still something that's prevalent, and people are trying to find ways to get around it. But I think it's important to realize that you pick up so much knowledge and so much learning in other ways rather than doing that degree.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes on to our next thing of like when employers or companies are kind of looking at hiring younger people who are at the start of their careers, which I think is one of the most exciting points to hire somebody at because they're eager and they're ready to go. What would you say just like are the other things of like Gen Z and this kind of generation that separate us? Like what, like apart from education, do we bring to kind of companies? One of my favorite topics to talk about, but I'm not sure what your kind of opinion.
100%. Yeah. So, I mean, I can't speak for the entirety of Gen Z. I can speak from my own experiences and people I know's experiences. I think one thing that's really important is Gen Z. I mean, the oldest person in Gen Z at the moment is going to be 27 because I think it's 1997 to 2012. And that means that like you were saying, Holly, and like myself, we went through the education process, which is usually a really strict formal environment that is staged and is very linear. We went through that in a completely unprecedented time of COVID. Like I didn't do GCSEs because they didn't happen because of COVID. And I think that has really lended itself to adaptability and resilience, because it means, like you were saying, you essentially taught yourself your degree because you didn't meet your teachers. I think that is such a unique aspect that has followed this generation. And I completely appreciate, you know, with millennials and everybody struggled through COVID and everybody had to adapt. But I think having Gen Z in that structured environment and then us having to completely adapt is a really useful quality that I think will benefit a lot of employers.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is really interesting that we've had to go through that kind of education as well. The kind of the assumptions that you see with Gen Z of like, oh, what they demand and what they kind of know is because like we went through that period of time where we were kind of like our own boss, our own kind of company, and we saw ourselves how we could be most productive and how we could work well. Like I was able to teach myself my degree without any support. So I know that prioritizing my mental health or prioritizing work-life balance is how I get work done, or not prioritizing how long I spend at my laptop and going, okay, I'm going to make sure I get this question done or this module done, rather than going, oh, I need 8 hours of it done and that means it's going to create great work. Like that's not how it works, and that's not how it works for me. So then that could also be applied in your role. I think you kind of go for it and you learn a lot. We definitely throughout like COVID, I've learned so much more about myself throughout that time than I ever have. And I've been able to bring that into my career and kind of like know my worth and know what I'm capable of. And when you kind of look at, you're probably the same. When something gets hard, you're kind of like, oh, like I was able to do that. This is fine. Like I can get through that. That's fine. And I feel like that's what we kind of bring to a lot of companies is that determination and that perseverance of that we can overcome things. And sometimes people look at it, oh, Gen Z want this. And a lot of things Gen Z want is like what you guys want as well. Like you don't want work-life balance and fair pay. Like have fun. Stay late. And that's how you kind of get like the work done. And I feel like Gen Z are the generation that are coming in to make an impact and to say like, come on, it's not working. This is how we work. And I feel like I kind of have this conversation constantly with Sophie in terms of the way how much could we learn from each other if we just stop making these assumptions and stop having these discussions of going, I don't sit there and go, oh, how can I work with people in this generation? I go, I want to work with this people in generation. It shouldn't be this kind of confusing thing of just coming and learning together from each other. And you'll be surprised how much you can learn.
Absolutely. I mean, you learn so much from other people's experiences. And I think, like you say, there are a lot of assumptions, but historically, if you look back, every generation that was once the new generation has been judged and ridiculed for being different. And I think the only way you can progress is to work with the difference rather than combat it.
Definitely. Yeah, that's really, really, really powerful. And especially in that way of like kind of going back on topic of what we were talking about, like the difference isn't just about age, it's about education, it's about anything else that you bring. Why are we still sticking to these social norms where you can kind of see proof that it's working, that if you open it up to people, that's when you're going to find these incredible people, and that's where they're kind of hiding. And we kind of talk about it a lot about like graduate schemes, about how people kind of wait until September. And I'm like, there's incredible people waiting now. So like there's these different factors that means in hiring, if you just open yourself a little bit more and make yourself a bit more inclusive of who you talk to, you're going to come across incredible people along the way. And it will bring so many diverse perspectives into your company. Like imagine a company with everybody who had a degree, and then someone comes along and they don't have a degree and are able to go, I learned this way. You bring in so many different practical skills, because I know full well a lot of the practical skills I taught myself that I'm able to use in this role was kind of learned on my own. You don't sit there in a university lecture and they're like, this is how you use this app that is able to do this. You kind of learn that yourself. I'm not sure if you kind of have seen that, Jared.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think like, especially even like how you were talking about like struggling to, say for example, like when applying for jobs, like there's a bunch of jobs out there where you do need a degree, but I feel like it doesn't really make sense as well, because there's the whole catch-22 thing of people kind of getting a bunch of debt, go to uni, spend 3-4 years studying to get their degree, which obviously like they're hoping, this will help me get a job. But then you get out of uni and then you need a bunch of experience to get an entry-level job anyway. But then if then the experience is then more important than the degree, then surely then just drop the necessity to have a degree for the job, you know? Like it doesn't really seem to make sense the way that the system's currently laid out. Yeah, I don't know if you had any thoughts on that, Liv, but
I would love somebody to explain to me how they want a graduate degree with, you know, if they've got a first degree, how are you expecting them to have 2-3 years experience? When were they supposed to be getting that experience? Because if you want a degree, surely you have to be focused on studying on that degree. And I'm not saying that people can't do internships, because, you know, I know plenty of people that do internships over summer, but that's not 2-3 years worth of experience. And it's just, like you say, it's a complete catch-22. And I do feel for every graduate who's currently looking for a graduate job, because it's the cards are stacked against them. You know, they've worked so hard to get this qualification that everyone told them they needed, and the job description tells them they needed, but they've not got 2-3 years experience. But that's not an entry-level role, 2-3 years experience.
no, not at all. And obviously that's the reason why why we do what we do, obviously with our CV-less system, trying to just help people who are suffering with that exact problem, which, yeah, like I say, I just don't think it makes any sense. And this is why as well, like you say, within schools, they do push people to go to uni, and then obviously the universities will have like partnerships with the schools, and they want to push the whole CV system so that essentially they get you to a bit like, oh, I went to this nice uni. And, you know, like I say, it's part of the whole system that I think just needs a little bit of tweaking, personally. Yeah.
I feel like people are starting to catch on though.
I have seen a lot more job descriptions where I don't know, they're either saying no CVs required for the application, or like more like non-degree necessary jobs.
Yeah, I've seen a lot that prioritize experience, which is fabulous because it means the rhetoric is changing, just changing slowly. But I think it's going to be a slow burn in terms of there's always going to be large companies or C-suite executives that want people with degrees. And if that works for your company and that's what you desperately want to do, then that's fine. But I think you really need to consider the fact that you're missing out on such a massive talent pool.
Mm. And so say for example, obviously like we say, it is a bit of a slow burning change, right? Say for example, right now, hypothetically, like the whole system just changed. Everyone said, all right, you no longer need a degree to get every single job. It's all based on uh, like say soft skills, proficiencies, whatever, technical skills or whatever, but like, or experience, but just no degrees. What do you think would be the, I guess like effect of that and wider society?
Well, I mean, economically, it would be catastrophic because universities are a massive industry. They make money, and that's how they work. They're a business as much as they're higher education, like facilitators. They are a business, so economically, it'd be catastrophic. It really would. And also, I don't think that getting rid of university is the answer because it's okay for me to say university wasn't for me, but some people that might be the path for them, and that's completely okay. Like Holly said at the start, we're not here to bash degrees. We're here to make sure that everybody knows all of the options that are available to them. Like I have plenty of friends that are currently, final year uni students, and some of them loved it, some of them had a mixed experience, some of them turned around and said, I wish I'd have done an apprenticeship. There's such a big mix of experiences and a mix of people that I think there's no real scenario where it's going to be one or the other and where that can be a positive thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's just the messaging behind university that needs to change, really. I think people should be promised that, like, by going to university, like, you're going to leave and you're going to go straight into this job and you're going to get this really high salary and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be rainbows. I wish it was kind of the messaging of, like, you want to learn more. Like, you're not done learning and this is how you want to do it. And you like the way education is structured. You work better on structured learning and there's maybe a completely different subject that you're interested in and you want to learn more about it and you just want a little bit longer of education and that's why you need it. That's why I kind of felt, because I did my A levels throughout COVID, obviously. I didn't actually do my A levels. The government gave me my grades. So another factor why I kind of decided to go to university is because I felt like I missed out on education. I was like, oh, okay, hopefully the pandemic will be over soon. That obviously didn't happen. Um, I'm going to go to university because I missed out on education and I really liked learning. I was that kind of person. I loved carrying my notebooks around and learning about new things and telling my family something that I've learned at school. And for it to just suddenly be over, I wasn't ready for that yet. So that's why I kind of decided to go to university. Whereas some people are like, get me out. I want to be in a company. I want to be talking to people. I want to be on the floor, or I already know what I want to do. And I've known that for a young age. You have a lot of people who, oh, I want to follow my dad's footsteps. I want to join his company and that kind of thing. So it just works for different people and what they kind of want. So that's what I feel like the university. I wouldn't say to get rid of it completely. I would just say the messaging around it should be you choosing to learn rather than, oh, it's the easy way to get a job, if that counts.
100%, 100%. And also like you said as well earlier, I think sometimes it is a thing of time. It's a bit like, just don't rush it. I think it's so many people, there's so much pressure to go to university immediately as soon as you finish college or like school or whatever. And it's just like, so many people just didn't really know what they wanted to do. They've come out with their degree and then they're just a bit like, okay, what do I do with this now? I'm just gonna go and just be a recruiter instead or something, Like it's just a bit like sometimes if we just put less pressure in the education system on uni right now, maybe you get a lot more people who have the time to work out what they want to do and then also build a bit of a wider skill set along the way before they find out that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's important to recognize that I know that I was in a privileged position where I didn't have to rush in to a job or to uni. I left college and went and worked as an executive assistant and office manager in an engineering firm for 9 months before I got my first marketing role, because I didn't want to rush into uni, but I couldn't find a marketing role. But I wanted to be doing something. But I appreciate that's not the case for everyone, and some people do need to be in a job immediately, and that's fine. And if that works for them and that's what they need to do, then that's okay. But that doesn't mean that they should be pigeonholed into paying £9,500 a year on this premise that they're going to get a big high salary job at the end of it.
Yeah, you have a lot of people kind of end university in a lot of frustration in the fact they're like, oh, you're still looking for a job as well. You're like, yeah. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it isn't the right thing for them, because you do learn so much and you learn about a completely different like sector or industry that you might have not been able to do for education. I know a lot of like state schools, they might not be able to teach you about a certain industry or a certain part. So being able to have that, and I know a lot of people want to escape the city, that you learn so much as well living away from home. That's what I've learned from a lot of my friends. Whereas I was commuting in. So it's a life experience as well. And that's what university gives you. And it gives you that confidence. And that's what a lot of people look for in interviews as well. It's not just about like the technical things. It's about being able to have that confidence, hold a conversation, be able to express yourself in a way that thinks that you're a valuable part of the company when you do join. So yeah, it's like you're not sure what to do, but I can see the value of both. And that kind of goes into like our next thing of if what we were kind of talking about, if companies were to drop and make like degree not necessary, the like how much wider their talent pool would be and how many more people they would attract. Because not only are you attracting people who are doing an apprenticeship or vocational studies, or they do something else that isn't a degree, you're also having those people who might have done a degree in a completely different degree that's like related to that role, which is another thing that kind of confuses me when we were talking about Catch-22. I know sometimes they say degree necessary, and then sometimes they'll take somebody with a degree, but it's got nothing to do with the actual role. That's kind of me. I've seen that. I know somebody who did like a marine biology degree, and then they went and got a role in education. So I think that kind of shows the fault with it. But yeah, I think by definitely dropping degree necessary, you're opening to much wider pool of talent and incredible people that might have been missed along the way, and what they can bring to your company in terms of just like life experiences and what they've already developed on their own is so valuable to any company. I'm not sure if you kind of have anything you'd say on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's really important is I can sort of empathize with employers in the sense that they might look for the degree necessary because it demonstrates that determination to learn and that resilience working through the 3-year course. But like we were saying earlier, determination, resilience, all of these soft skills can be demonstrated in a multitude of ways. And I think by putting degree necessary, and it frustrates me to know when it says degree necessary, but it's like you say, it could be, I could apply to a marketing role with a science degree. And if I was working for a pharmaceutical company or a biotech company or something like that, great. But it's not always the case that degree is transferable. And it's more those soft skills that you learn from the degree that are transferable to the role.
I think as well, to be honest, like it probably you could go as far as to say that like there's a lot of people just like yourself who, like you say, that where they are looking for that degree to show that you have that dedication to learning. There's a lot of people like yourself who will have kind of gone against the grain and had to do more work and put in more dedication and like solo work to go through their own like journey to get into these positions as well. Like I don't think that automatically means it. Like I say, there's so many people who just fall into a degree because it's just the thing to do. They're hardly even thinking about the process or the end goal kind of thing. They're just going into uni. So I do think that it would be a little bit I don't know if it would be the greatest assumption for an employer to just automatically assume that just because someone has a degree that they have that extra drive.
No, absolutely. And I do think, it's taking it from another angle as like someone who's been through job applications, like I was just saying, I had a look through this morning, and I take it as I will happily not apply to a job and not work for a company that says I have to have a degree. Because my view on it is, if you as a company are not progressive enough to realize that there are a multitude of educational options out there, then I don't want to work for you. And I think it takes both ways. If companies are limiting a talent pool, but they're also falling out of favor with job seekers, because I know everyone needs a job, and everyone is, graduate jobs are horrendously competitive. But as someone who's in a position where I can pick and choose, I actively will not work for a company if they request a degree from me.
Mm.
That's really interesting. I wonder if people with degrees kind of think that as well, in a way of like,
Literally, yeah. I mean,
things. You're like, why are you demanding that? What does this entail?
I don't know. I mean, I suppose it'd be the same as if I had worked for 3 years to get a degree and they didn't ask me about it. I'd be put out because I've put that effort in. And I think it's all about how much effort you put in as a person. And, if I've worked to get to a position where I am now, I don't want to feel belittled by you saying, but you haven't got a piece of paper that says you can do your job. So I don't want to hire you.
It's even worse when they say like degree necessary and they put like like you have to have a first in like a degree, or like you have to have a first in maths. I'm like, anything else? Like what else do you want to add to that? So I think it is a really interesting thought to have, because I feel like it probably is the same with people with degrees as well. When they have this long list of requirements, do you think, is that actually the kind of company that I want to go into? It wasn't until I kind of saw like the role for pollen, and I've had a lot of this feedback where you're like, I actually care about the person you are, not what you've achieved or what you've been able to do, or in terms of education. It's about you as a person and what you bring. I think that's when people are a lot more invested in the process. So I think by opening that, by having that disclaimer saying anybody's welcome to apply, we like inclusion, diversity, everything like that, that's when you're going to open a wider pool and people will feel more confident in applying. So yeah, that definitely is interesting. So in terms of talking about degree that's necessary, this is kind of where we're gonna end it, because I feel like we could literally go on all day about this.
Yeah. Like, you're going to have to stop me, otherwise I'll just keep talking.
We could have like an extra long version if anybody's interested. That will be just us talking about it for 3 hours. But when people registered, what they did is they submitted a question as well to us. As we're kind of a Gen Z team here, so we'll kind of go into that. So one that I thought was really interesting is, in your opinion, what is the most important question to be asked during an interview?
I personally think some of the most insightful questions. I mean, I think you get the reason interview questions are asked is not necessarily because employers want the direct answer to the question. They're reading around what you say and they're trying to learn more about you from what you say. But I think two of the most important questions I think to ask in an interview, and I enjoy being asked the most when I've been interviewed, is, why do you want to work here? Like, specifically here. And that might be that someone, because often people will see a role and they go, I want to do that role. And if you want to do that role, that's fine. But that role could exist across, 10, 12 different companies. So is there a specific reason that you want to work in this company? Because that's going to tell you so much about that person. Like you say, it's all about the type of person that is and what they bring to the role. And if they already have an ignited passion for a certain company or an organization that works towards a certain cause, it might sway, their sort of passion for the job and how suitable they might be for that role. The other thing I think is really important to ask is, what do you do outside of work? And people often skim over this question or don't give, like, I've spoken to lots of interview candidates who've been like, it feels like a trick question. Like, it feels like they want me to say that I'm like studying outside of work and things like that. It's not the case at all. They want to get an insight into what you are, as what type of person you are outside of your corporate life, and they want to understand what makes you tick as a person, because then again, it provides that insight into how suitable you'll be for that role. So it can come as a shock. Like I always say, I'm always dead honest on that question. Like, I'm really into sailing, which I've had feedback that doesn't look like something, like, it's always a shock to people when I say that, but it's a really interesting fact. Like, every time I've said it, I've been questioned on it, and it's gone into more depth on it than possibly some of the other competency-based questions, because it makes you stand out. And the other thing to know is, it makes you memorable if you've got something unique about you.
Definitely. And I do think that's very important to have, like, with an interview, doing something that I guess shows your personality, it makes you memorable. I do think it is a lot more important than people think, rather than just falling between the lines and just being like, I am the person that you want me to be. Like, you do have to show some of your personality for sure.
Yeah. I think that's how you can kind of get the best out of someone, is when you kind of like remind them that like you've had an interview before, like you're a person. It's not like this scary thing, like they're not trying to catch you out. You are just trying to learn more about the person. So I definitely think like more personal questions when you're just interested in they're not just another person, like another number joining a company. This is someone that you want on your team, and this is someone that you will spend a lot of time with and you will talk to every day. So that's really important as well. So I really feel like I find out more about a person when we ask those kind of questions. I remember we were doing a process before and we asked everyone, it was with a charity who support women, and we asked them like, who's the most inspirational woman to you? And like the answers we kind of got from that, and it kind of like took back that layer of them like realizing, oh, okay, like this is just a nice like discussion with somebody. And that's when you kind of, as a candidate, know, oh, okay, they're actually asking about me, not whether I can do this in this time, whether I'm capable of this, whether I have these skills. So I definitely think like one of the most important questions to ask is just something that proves that you're looking for a yes.
You're a person at the end of the day, aren't you? Like, as much as you need to be able to fill a role and meet the requirements of that role, you have to be a team fit as well. You have to gel well with the company. And I think, you know, those sort of softer, more emotive questions really unlock such incredible insight to a candidate.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely does. Now on to the next question. So what do you think then is one of the worst or like most pointless questions to be asked during an interview?
The question I dislike being asked the most is, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
I was thinking that question.
Yeah, and do you know what it is? It's because as a person, and this will differ person to person, but as a person, I'm driven and I want opportunities, but I can't predict, like, I'm not a psychic, I can't predict what those opportunities are. So I much prefer it when somebody asks, you know, are you keen to develop professionally, or are there areas or skills you hope to develop in? Because I appreciate why employers ask that question. It's because they want to, first off, they're trying to gauge whether you'll stay with the company, and they're trying to gauge how driven you are to develop in your role and do the best that you can do. But realistically, nobody can predict the future. And as much as like I'd never go into a job interview and turn around and swear my soul to a company forever, because I can't guarantee what will happen. And it doesn't mean that I'm any less committed to the role and any less determined to do the best I can. But I think by asking candidates that question, you're pushing them into a corner of where they have to commit.
Yeah, definitely. I think even people later on in their career, like they're not gonna know. Like imagine if you answered that question and you're like, what about you?
Nobody knows. Nobody knows what they want to be doing in 5 years' time. But it's very rare. You know, some people will have a dead set idea, but so many things can change. You know, like we've seen the effects of COVID and massive world changes like that. That could throw the whole world upside down if that happened again. And my answer would change if you asked me what I want to be doing in 5 years. Just like if you asked me 5 years ago what I wanted to be doing, it probably wouldn't be exactly what I'm doing now, because things change. And I think I'm a big believer in grabbing opportunities as they come up. But that does mean that you have a bit of a dynamic career path as opposed to that straight line.
Yeah. And I guess from the company side as well, if you only have like, for example, half an hour, an hour with a candidate, it's kind of almost like a waste of a question, because you're not going to get a genuine answer, because then they're just going to say, oh, I hope I'm here. I hope I've been able.
No candidate is going to turn around and go, well, I've left your company in 2 years. A candidate is going to, people tell you, people tell employers as much as what they want to hear. And, you know, that's how we're conditioned to approach job interviews, is tell the employers what they want to hear. That's not how I approach job interviews. I'm always very honest. And I say, you know, look, I can't predict the future. I don't know where I'm going to be in 5 years, but I know that in the now I'm committed to this and I want to do this and I'm determined to do the best I can. And I think, you know, by asking questions that are slightly different, like, how do you want to develop professionally? Are you interested in professional development? It still provides that insight on whether they're committed without forcing them to not lie, but be take a guess at what the future's going to look like.
Yeah. I think that's really important as well when we kind of talk about Gen Z, because I definitely think they are kind of the generation that do really value development, and they're the side hustle generation. They're the ones doing the things on the side. So when companies kind of ask that question, they kind of look at it like, obviously, I want this person to stay in my company. Why are we against them wanting to develop in different ways? Like, why are we against maybe possibly them going to another department or them becoming the manager or things like that? Like, that will benefit you as a company, being able to say that you were able to like lift them up to become into this position. Nobody's going to sit there and go, I hope I stay in this entry level role for the next kind of 3 years. So I think it is really important, and it is a great question to ask in terms of like how you see yourself developing, because this is the generation that we all kind of have an idea of where we see ourselves, but again, we can't predict the future. So yeah, I really don't like that question. And sometimes it's like 10 years and you're like, the bigger the gap, the more confused I am.
I don't even know where I'm going to be in a year's time from here. Let's be so realistic. I hope I'm still in a marketing role and I'm in a position where I can continue to advocate for alternative routes to university. But I don't know where I'm going to be. You know, I could be working in a cafe in Australia. I just don't know. It's just a case of opportunities come up as they come up, and that's not something that companies should be afraid of or indeed discourage their employees from taking.
Yeah. I think this is kind of like the last question actually. We actually had somebody sign up there doing their dissertation on workplace expectations and like generational differences, which is really cool. Um, I think I'd like to read that and probably get some inspiration from that. But I think what they kind of were saying is like, can we make out any like similarities or differences within like Gen Z and the older generation that we can kind of like discuss? And what we can kind of discuss about how we can bridge the generational divide within companies.
Yeah.
Big old question, but what's like our just first initial?
Yeah, so I think the first thing to keep in mind is, like I said earlier, if you look back historically through news headlines and online publications and everything, every generation that was once the new generation, you know, whether it be millennials or Gen Z, were demonized at one point. Whether it be millennials are too loud in the workforce, Gen Z don't want to work, Gen Z are too demanding. Every generation brings a difference, and I think that difference is either accepted or it's combated, and that's something that's slowly changing with education and learning. And I'll give an example of, I know a lot of Gen X. Gen X is the older generation, yeah, Gen X that have I've seen it, you know, I've seen it on LinkedIn, and I've seen comments and I've seen posts that Gen Z need to stop whinging, and Gen Z need to, you know, we suffered, so they need to suffer too. That's just not the case. And like, you don't develop and you don't progress as a society by not changing and learning from mistakes and things that were done differently. I think it's really important to realize that there are differences in every single generation. You know, like you were saying before, Holly, Gen Z are really driven professionally to develop and to learn. And an insight I've gathered from speaking to lots of, you know, entry level Gen Z is they want a company that aligns with their values. And I can see that because personally, there's companies I wouldn't work for because I can't, especially working the job I do, marketing, I can't market something that I don't believe in or I don't support. And I think that's a key difference between older generations and Gen Z. Is at one time it was, you wake up, you go to the office for 8 a.m., you wear a suit, you do your job and you go home, you get paid, that's it. And I think now, like, as newer generations are coming in, the workforce is becoming so much more holistic in the approach to how people look for jobs and what people want out of jobs.
Yeah. People are a lot more decisive in what they kind of apply to. And obviously, you kind of get in a stage that you might apply for a lot of jobs because you're kind of in the panic stage. But I could definitely kind of relate to you because I wanted to go into a marketing role leaving university. And I always said, I'm not going to like apply for a job if it's not something I'm passionate about or I honestly feel like it's something that I could talk about. I had an opportunity to do like marketing for a roofing company. And I'm like, I don't know what I can do about roofing. And then it wasn't until I kind of like found Pollen and I was like, oh, okay, I really agree with their mission. I feel like I can really talk about what they're doing and relate. that was when I was like I was invested in the process and I gave it my everything. It wasn't until I saw that kind of role that I was like, yeah, this is the one I want. I feel like a lot of people can relate to that. Um, I know a lot of people are in the position that they're able to wait for them kind of roles. They are kind of like they need a job now, and you kind of are in a privileged position if you're able to wait. But I think a lot of people are definitely waiting for the one that resonates with them, and I definitely think that's something that comes from Gen Z. That why wouldn't you want somebody who's like, I really want this role. I want to work for your company. I want to help promote your product, which is really a good thing.
I mean, I think talking marketing specifically, because it's the thing I work in, I don't think you should ever discount a role because of the product they sell or the service they provide. Because like I'd never worked in travel before I got this job, and like I knew I liked to travel, but I would have just as happily applied to a completely left field role that was working in. I know there was lawyers at my apprenticeship bootcamp. How my apprenticeship was done is there was loads of different employers from loads of different sectors. So there was lawyers, there was corporate printers and things like that. I think you can learn so much from every role, and every role presents a learning opportunity. And when I say Gen Z are more driven by values, I think for me that means more driven by personal experience. So for example, I wouldn't ever feel comfortable working to market diet supplements or things that promoted unhealthy weight loss, because personally that's not something that I can align myself with. So therefore I wouldn't be a good fit for the role because it's not something I'm passionate about. And like you say, it's finding that candidate that cares about working for your company rather than working in a marketing role.
Yeah, you could say a lot about culture. I know we're kind of going into a marketing talk as well. I've seen a lot. I'm not sure if you follow Lauren Spearman on TikTok. Love her content. Especially with marketing, it's when the like job spec, you're talking about 4 different roles here.
What it is with marketing, but employers, and usually, to be honest with you, I've seen it shift. And there is so much more discourse now around how you can't hire a marketing admin and then make the first line of the job description design our marketing strategy. Just not how it works. It's the same as, I think, to be honest with you, it all comes from a place of learning. And I think until you educate people and employers specifically on what marketing roles can look like and what fits within the bounds of each role. And I also think, especially when looking for a job in such a broad field like marketing, you do have to sort of discount job titles because one company might say marketing executive, but it's an entry-level role, and another company might have marketing executive, but it's a mid-senior role. Job titles are largely irrelevant in a space like marketing because it's such a broad industry to be in, and I don't think anyone fully understands the bounds of what role encompasses what.
Yeah. Job titles is another really fun discussion that we like to have when we're kind of looking at promoting jobs and we kind of see the candidates come in and we talk to them what they're looking for. Especially with entry level roles, job titles scare people a little bit because they're not educated on what it means. So when you have like titles like executive or like things like that,
Associate is what that's me.
oh, I can't do that. That's like a bit too higher up for me. But when you look at it, it is actually described as entry level. I would have never applied for associate or executive when I left. I was like typing in junior and I was typing in assistant. That's what I was kind of doing. So I think that's another discussion that we tend to have all the time. We like to look at job descriptions and think when we get one, we're kind of like, this is interesting.
Let's red pen all of it. And I think it is part of a wider discussion in terms of how to make job descriptions as accessible as possible to a talent pool. But a really interesting statistic I found was that female job seekers are much less likely to apply for a job if they don't meet every single aspect of the criteria in that job. And statistically, male job seekers will go, well, I can do that one and that one, but I can't do, like, I can do bullet point 1 and 2, but I can't do 5, 6, 7, 8, but I'll apply for it anyway. And I think it comes within that confidence of ensuring that candidates feel confident enough about their abilities. And then that comes with not being pigeonholed into you have to have a degree or you have to have, 3 years experience and a degree. We're not helping candidates with their confidence by demanding such a massive shopping list off them. especially for an entry level role. If it's entry level, the point of it is to learn and to progress with a company.
Yeah, and you need to make sure that you're inclusive in how you're promoting that role, that people feel comfortable applying. And this is kind of, I'll talk about Pauline in a bit. We are currently doing a role for risk aviation. And we did this role and we'll talk about it. It's a lovely company, their culture, everything, it's great, they're fantastic. And the one thing they kind of said is like, we'd love to have a girl. Like, not many people, like girls apply for aviation risk. And I kind of like, I've known from that, it's because they probably think that they don't feel like they can, because obviously it being like a male dominated industry. So as soon as we kind of like looked at the job spec and we included it saying like everybody's welcome to apply, what we do is you go like, you love this job if you, so it's like if you are super organized or things like that. And we ended up with all girls without even trying. So that really shows what happens when you start to like break it down and make it more inclusive for people, that you have a different like talent pool and you have different people applying, and it's just making that inclusive for everybody. And that's when you'll find, like, I like to say, like the little hidden gems that are just waiting for an opportunity by doing that. But yeah, I know we've kind of gone off on a bit of a tangent. But yeah, I think that's definitely something that we could talk about in terms of what generations have in common and what they don't. But yeah, I'll hand it back over to Jared as a host. But you really like to continue this after and just have a little rant.
No, we could keep going on forever, honestly, but regardless, it's been a great conversation. And to be fair, this past hour has flown by. But yeah, I just want to thank you so much for coming, Liv. Thanks to everyone also who popped in. I see a few people had to go off to meetings and stuff. But yeah, thanks everyone for coming through and joining the conversation, getting involved. Really, really appreciate it. If anybody wants to, like, I guess, talk to us more, put in any suggestions, you can get in touch. And yeah, once again, thanks for coming, everyone. Don't know if you wanted to add anything else at the end, at all.
Just thank you for coming. We'll send out another email just to thank you all and to fill out the other questionnaire that I kind of had when you signed up. But like Jared said, more than happy to jump on a call and to talk about Gen Z or any of the topics that we've discussed. And also to check out Pollen. We have amazing people in our community that are ready to hit the ground running. But yeah. Yeah,
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, guys. It's been such a brilliant conversation and this hour really has flown. Same sentiment. If anyone has any other questions or wants to get in touch about anything we've discussed, I'm on LinkedIn, so please feel free to shoot me a message. It's been so brilliant talking to you both. And if nobody has checked it out already, please go check out Pollen, because they are really fabulous at what they do. And they have so many brilliant candidates just ready to get started in their roles.
Thank you so much, Liv. Means a lot. Means a lot. Yeah, and that's us. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.